My sister-in-law passed away in a freak accident, and I was the last person to see her, so my husband thought I found out about their freaky activities together and pushed her down the stairs. Posted by u/throw_ra_notakiller. My 30F husband Luke, 33M, had a sister, Laura, 29F. We were all close and saw each other 2 to 3 times a month. Almost 6 months ago, Laura fell down the stairs at their family home and tragically passed away. It was a freak accident. There's a window on the half landing, and she hit her head on the sill. I was the last person to see her. I was there for less than 10 minutes, and she was in her pajamas making coffee. I didn't even stay for a drink, and I struggle with how such a brief and meaningless interaction could have been her last. She deserved so much more. My husband and I have only been married for a year, but we've been together for 4 and have known each other for over 20. When Laura's parents found her, they called my husband straight away, and we rushed over. We faced the whole thing as a family. In the days after, Luke started quizzing me. Exactly what we talked about, what she was wearing, where we were standing, etc. It progressed to saying I was providing conflicting information on tiny details he was deliberately misunderstanding and accusing me of withholding information because I couldn't tell him things like what pajamas she was wearing. This escalated quickly but lasted for less than a week, as I lost my cool and made it clear that I was done answering questions. He didn't bring it up again, and I wrote it off as a grief quirk. His behavior was generally that of a normal, grieving person. Last Friday, in front of his parents, he outright accused me of unaliving her. We were all stunned. There was an inquest which recently concluded, and there was never any doubt the verdict would be an accidental passing. He said it was completely obvious and he couldn't believe that no one else could see it. He claims I went through his phone and found his messages with Laura and that I went over to confront her, and things got out of hand, and I pushed her downstairs. I have absolutely no idea what messages he's talking about. I have never looked at his phone. By the end, he was shouting about going to the police and getting the inquest overturned, and how I wasn't going to get away with it. Let me be clear, Laura and I had a great relationship. We all did. I have no idea where this has come from, other than these messages I haven't seen, and even then, I don't think there's anything I could ever see on someone's phone that would drive me to unalive someone. It's just ridiculous. He's been with his parents since this happened and will not talk to me at all. I've had some contact with his mom, but she's not being very communicative. The last I heard, she didn't know what messages he was referring to either. I'm still completely stunned, and I have no idea how to proceed. I made a commitment to be there for him always, and I understand that grief can manifest in strange ways, but part of me feels like my love for him evaporated the second he called me an unaliver, and I don't know how we could possibly work through this. I also really don't want to be thought of in this way, and I have no idea if he has said anything to people we know. I obviously haven't. A brain tumor or psychotic break has crossed my mind, and I suggested it to his mother, and she just said she'll talk to him. Other than the questions before, he hasn't been acting odd. Obviously, he's been grieving, but he seems sane and sensible other than this. I feel like I'm going mad. Does anyone have any advice at all? Update 1. Firstly, thank you to those who helped me access my husband's messages. My husband's iCloud credentials were saved on an old iPad in his office, and I downloaded his backup last night. I have read all of his messages with his sister, and there is absolutely nothing like he describes. There were no crazy or even suspicious messages. I've searched for over 100 terms and scrolled back over years. I saw a side of them both I wasn't expecting, but nothing that explains the claim I unalived Laura over their chats. Nothing to suggest he was cheating, and absolutely nothing to suggest incest. I repeat, no incest. No weird gaps where deleted conversations or a switch to another app would fit. Just siblings making plans, sending memes, and gossiping. They said unexpectedly horrible stuff about a few people, but not me. It was a sort of relief, but it raised more questions than it answered. I sought legal advice, also from Reddit, after posting here. Turns out my options are to divorce him or sit down. I contacted my community mental health team, who said they'd reach out, but made it clear it wasn't urgent. I then called his mom and said that if I didn't hear from him by this weekend, I would get a solicitor and ask for a mental health assessment as part of the divorce. In response, he made a ridiculous post on Facebook, which neither of us have used in years, and everything blew up. I'm going to try to keep this succinct. On Friday night, he made a long accusation on Facebook with new information. He said he'd been planning to leave me for months with his sister's support, and I found the messages and unalived her. The coroner has reopened the case, and the police are preparing to arrest me, and he needs to make sure people know before the trial stops him from talking about it. It was well written and seemed vaguely plausible. He messaged people links, so it got some attention. We live in our hometown and have a large circle of friends because we've been here all our lives. People I haven't spoken to since school were reaching out to me, asking what was going on. It was madness. In response, I posted the export of his entire conversation history with Laura. I linked to the chat along with a post explaining my side, and noted that I had changed my ex's iCloud and Apple passwords, and that if he wanted them back, he should comment on my post and update his own, admitting that he was lying. He eventually did. When I started getting messages about his post, I panicked, and changing his password seemed important to preserve everything because he'd know I had access. When I spoke to him the next morning, it was clear he wasn't having a mental episode at all, but was claiming one because he'd been caught in a big lie. As soon as he was outed, he called me, clearly drunk, begging and promising to explain everything if I deleted my post. I hung up and told him to call back the next day. He did, after many missed calls and texts, and he tried to bargain and guilt-trip me with his mental health until it was clear the wrong people had seen his conversation. It's hard to describe, but it seemed fake. It was too well rehearsed, and then this morning, when it was clear he was getting nowhere, he blocked me. Begging for mercy and reciting facts about mental disorders doesn't align with someone in crisis with a sincere belief that someone unalived their sibling. The question of why he did all this remains unanswered, and he will not be getting his passwords until it is. The legal advice subreddit said this stuff is technically illegal, but it's beneath a court to take action, so I'm going to count on that because I felt like I had no other choice at the time, and now I don't see any other way to get answers from him. I am desperate and it's all I've got. So there we are. The relationship I have believed was my destiny since I was a teenager has boiled down to petty, convoluted, and vindictive nonsense, played out on social media, for reasons still unknown. My hope for a brain tumor is fading, and clearly tomorrow morning is going to be when I lawyer up and stop posting about this. I am mortified. I have no idea whether some people might believe him, and I still don't know why this all happened in the first place. Sorry I don't have a happier update, and thanks once again to everyone who offered advice. Update 2. Hi everyone, me again. Both times I posted here, it has paid off hugely in terms of helping unravel this mess, so I hope it's third time lucky. For the past few weeks, I've been trying to figure out why my husband suddenly accused me of unaliving his sister, who passed away in an accident at home 6 months ago. It still feels as ridiculous now as it did then. When Laura passed, we found out she had about £3,000 in hidden debt. It was odd because she was pretty open about her finances, but it wasn't out of character for her to overspend, so I hadn't really thought about it since. A comment on my last post prompted me to look more closely at money matters, and a message to my husband from Laura asking about a payment stuck out. I had initially assumed it was about a car issue she'd had a few weeks before she passed, but Luke definitely paid at the garage when they picked it up because we talked about it after she dropped him home. It didn't occur to me when I first looked through. The messages supposedly proved I was an unaliver, so I had been looking for something scandalous. The message about the payment was the only clue I had at that point, and I had no idea what it meant, so I took a chance. I told his mother I knew about the money and that if he didn't get in touch with me that day, I would make sure everybody else did too. He called me straight away and asked me to come over to his parents' house to talk. He looked dreadful, and the first thing he asked me was whether I was happy now that all of his friends hate him. I told him I didn't care about his relationships and that I was there for answers. It turns out my husband told the coroner's office that he was secretly helping Laura pay some of her debt because she was embarrassed and struggling to keep up with her lifestyle. I assume it didn't seem suspicious because her passing was clearly an accident, and that's what they were investigating. In reality, he took out loans and store cards in her name, and she somehow found out a few weeks before the accident. Some guy he works with had apparently done it before and arranged it all, and if Laura hadn't found out, he claims they could have had it written off without her ever knowing. When she did find out, the guy left him high and dry, and he had to pay it off. I'm inclined to believe that's the gist of what happened, but I am shocked my husband would do something this stupid. When she passed so soon after, his brief and apparently genuine suspicion was that she had told me about it that day, and we argued and I had pushed her down the stairs. He couldn't explain why I would unalive someone because they were a victim of fraud, but according to him, he felt guilty in the immediate aftermath, and his brain made it fit. I mostly believe this, but he tried launching into more weaponized therapy speak at that point, so I cut the topic off. A few months after his sister's accident, Luke received a letter from a credit company, not even the police, saying he was being investigated. Laura didn't have much, so her debts, which were less than £10,000 even with the fraud, were mostly written off. Something obviously flagged against my husband during that process, I don't know how or why. When the letters got more threatening, he believed the investigation would reopen the inquest, and that he would be accused of fraud, perjury, and because of his previously unknown motive, possibly causing his sister's accident. He claims the only thing the company investigating him actually knows is that the fraud came from our address, so accusing me would make it impossible to prove because it would be a coin toss, his words, as to which one of us took out the credit in Laura's name. That was worth our entire marriage to him, and my reputation in the community we have been part of for our entire lives. He says self-preservation kicked in and nothing else mattered when he thought about what could happen to him. When I asked him how his witness statement fits into his plan, because it proved he lied either way by acknowledging he knew about the debt and paying it, he froze for what felt like a million years before saying he hadn't thought of that. Obviously, my response was to ask why. If he hadn't thought of it, he specifically said it was a lie he needed to cover earlier in the conversation. Suddenly, he's sobbing, and his parents are rushing in to ask me to leave. I was in tears at this point, asking how he could do this to me over something so stupid and how much his parents knew about this, as his mom was pushing me out of their house. All she said was that she couldn't have this conversation with me. She was crying too but wouldn't say another word. I am now 99% sure he was trying to frame me. Not for her accident, but for the fraud. He was going to claim that he was lying for me in the coroner's interview, right? If he wrapped it all up as quietly paying her off on my behalf and then genuinely suspecting me of unaliving her, it would protect his reputation and point the finger at me. It just doesn't make sense any other way. Is my husband trying to frame me to weasel out of his actions, and how do I get to the bottom of this? I'm obviously open to theories because Reddit is the only reason I got this far in the first place. Editor's note. Op's account is now deleted after this last update, but she mentioned in a comment that her husband was a habitual user of coke, so it's likely illicit substance related.
Second story.
My wife forced me to open marriage because she said I was boring or else she would divorce me, but now that I'm sleeping with someone else and she got dumped, I'm perfect and everything she needs and wants me to focus on her. Posted by u/throw-rare-evolving-mar. My wife, 37F, and I, 35M, have been married for 15 years, and we have 2 children, 14F and 12M. About a year and a half ago, my wife came to me asking for an open marriage. She said she was bored with just us and wanted to experience more. I was very against this, as I am a strong believer that marriage is between 2 people. At the same time, when we got married, I had 5 intimate partners, and my wife had only been with me. She made it clear that either we opened things up, or she was prepared to file for divorce. Neither of us wanted that, so I agreed under certain conditions. Nobody brought back to the house. We don't talk about partners, the kids don't know, family doesn't know, all partners are tested ahead of time, nobody that we both know, etc. I had a strong suspicion that my wife had someone in mind, and this was confirmed when, 24 hours after we agreed, she went out and didn't return until 4 a.m. It was difficult for me to accept, and I was really not okay with it, but I wanted to save my marriage. Last May, I met Amber. Our daughters are in the marching band together. Amber is divorced and has no interest in getting married again. Like everyone else in the world, she does have needs. So, 5 months after opening up the marriage, I began sleeping with Amber. At first, it felt like cheating, but honestly, it's nice to have something no strings attached where neither of us wants it to proceed forward. Over time, I became comfortable with the idea that my wife and I would be able to get our needs met both inside and outside of our marriage. It actually made our bedroom life a lot more passionate, and we were much happier. My wife and her side guy, whom I never met, stopped seeing each other in April amid the coronavirus. From what I gather, while he's in an open marriage, his wife is not aware, and it was too hard for him to get away. In May, we helped organize a Zoom concert for the band kids, which turned out great. However, my wife met Amber for the first time. Well, I guess Amber has been open with a few of the moms because it got back to my wife that Amber was my outside partner. My wife informed me that since we both know Amber, I needed to end things with her. I refused, citing the fact that neither of us knew her ahead of time and their meeting did not violate the rules we established. Throughout the past month, she has repeatedly told me that she's uncomfortable with me continuing to sleep with Amber and that I need to conclude the arrangement. Note that she was fine for a year when she was with her partner. This weekend, she came to me and stated that she'd like to close our marriage again. I told her I was open to that as long as we agreed that it would remain closed moving forward. She agreed that's what she wants as well, saying that she doesn't need to have any more partners and that she's happy with just me. I told her that we could agree to close the marriage on 2 conditions. The first was as I laid out above. The second was that I wanted her to sign a document waiving spousal support in the event of divorce. She flipped out and categorically refused to even consider that. My wife is a stay-at-home mom and has not worked since we got married. She said that I could keep seeing Amber and leave her with nothing if she signed that. I told her that I'd be willing to include a list of mutually agreed upon situations, including infidelity on my part, where the agreement would be void. She says it's not open for discussion, that she's not going to continue to be cheated on and left with nothing when I decide to leave her for Amber. I pointed out that this whole thing was her idea and that I only went along with it to preserve our marriage. She says that if we don't close the marriage, then it might as well be over. I told her that I'm not going to tolerate being threatened with divorce every time she doesn't get her way. She says I'm being dramatic and I need to focus on us. Should I agree without stipulations? I know there's no future with Amber, as we've both agreed it's purely physical, and even though I know I'm standing my ground, I feel like I'm blowing up my marriage over nothing. At the same time, I don't believe it's about Amber at all. Edit. So, based on what some of you have said here, this morning I called Amber, reminded her that we were supposed to keep things discreet, and asked whom she had shared the details of our liaison with. She denied telling anyone, and I didn't get the feeling she was lying. I pulled up my wife's Google timeline history and discovered that she tracked me to Amber's house in April. She followed me and then deliberately introduced herself to Amber to create a conflict. Here I was thinking she actually wanted to get involved with the band parents, but no, she just wanted to try to end things with my outside partner. I don't even know what to do at this point. Update 1. It's been a very tough month. I confronted my wife about the stalking. She denied it at first, but then I brought up her location history. She attempted to deflect, claiming I invaded her privacy, but I didn't take the bait. Finally, she admitted that she didn't like that I had someone on the side when she didn't, and a mom at the school felt too close to home. I agreed that I would end things with Amber if she would agree to counseling, close the marriage up permanently, and start looking for a job to help with household expenses. She replied that she's a stay-at-home mom. I told her it was something we could revisit after the coronavirus is over, but when things normalize, she can't just stay home. We did a few therapy sessions, and things went well at first. The therapist challenged her on why she had followed me, asked why she felt she had to go outside the marriage, and had her address pretty much everything going through my mind. Then things went south. She admitted her outside partner was someone from her past, a high school boyfriend. They'd broken up before anything happened, and had reconnected. She regretted not going all the way with him in high school and decided that she wanted to fulfill that desire. I was pissed. I told her that if me choosing a mom from school was too close to home, then her choosing a married ex-boyfriend was completely unacceptable. I told her I didn't even want to look at her. I checked into a hotel to cool off because I didn't want my kids to see me like that. I stayed there for a few days and then decided to go home and deal with what was left of my marriage. When I got home, I found that my daughter was being unusually cold to me. Even for a 14-year-old girl, she was very dismissive. When I asked her what was going on, she went off on me for cheating on mom with a band mom. I asked her where she heard this. She wouldn't tell me at first, saying it didn't matter, but then finally admitted her mother told her that I was staying at my girlfriend's house after I left. I counted to 10 in my head, told her it wasn't true, showed her the receipt on my phone for the hotel, and told her that her mother and I had a fight, and I decided to take some time away so we could both calm down. She cried a lot, and I promised her that I loved her and I'd always love her. I did my best to remain calm, though I was burning up inside. I didn't even go to my wife. I went on Facebook and found the guy's wife. I sent her a message letting her know that for a year and a half, her husband had been having an affair with my wife, and I'd be happy to send her any proof she'd like. She was very appreciative and had suspected something was up. A few hours later, my wife came to me in a rage, screaming that I had violated the confidentiality of our therapy and ruined the guy's life. I asked her what she meant to do by telling our daughter that I had a girlfriend. She denied doing it and still refuses to admit that she told her anything other than that I was away for a few days. This went down last Thursday. We haven't spoken to each other since. We're supposed to have another counseling session tomorrow, though I don't know if it's even worth going. I keep catching her in lies, and I don't think I'll ever be able to trust her again. I know that filing for divorce is the wise choice at this point, but I feel sick thinking about it. I feel like a failure because I couldn't make my marriage work. I know that's where it's going to end up. I just feel like I'm going to throw up every time I try to call an attorney. Commenter. You didn't fail. Your wife wanted to cheat but didn't want to call it cheating. She never wanted or expected you to do the same. The fact that she said she'd divorce you if you didn't agree is extra manipulative. The fact that she tried to harm your relationship with your daughter is the last straw. I personally wouldn't find this situation fixable. But never beat yourself up for any of this. This is all your wife going off the rails, and you tried hanging on for dear life, but maybe it's time to let go. Also, I'd be fully open with your daughter about the whole situation. It will all come out eventually, so sharing the true story instead of rumors and lies is much healthier.
Third story.
I just overheard my future mother-in-law call me stupid in front of the whole family, and they all laughed and agreed. Now I'm thinking it's stupid to still get married. Posted by you/Amirani. I, 23F, have been with my fiancé, John, 24M, for 5 years. We were planning on getting married in July 2025. I always thought that his family liked me because we got along well. Honestly, I was very excited to have them all as my in-laws because they were always kind to me, or at least I thought they were. Some important information: about a year ago, when I was scrolling on Instagram, I saw a profile that was kind of cringy but in a cute way. It was an older woman's profile that shared inspirational quotes. I remember one particular post, and it was something along the lines of, "Only stupid people pretend to know everything. Don't pretend, just ask." Honestly, this quote changed me in many ways. Before that, I was always worried that I might embarrass myself if I didn't know something. After reading that quote, I realized that if I always pretend to know everything, I'll miss out on actually learning about things. So, I decided to change my habits and start admitting that sometimes I genuinely don't know. Someone is talking about the war in Kosovo? Okay, sure, but first let me ask some questions so I can really understand what we're talking about. And I ask a lot of questions sometimes. I sometimes even open the Notes app and write down questions that I later want to find answers to. These are my latest. How does time work in a black hole? Why do some snails have shells and others don't? What food is okay for ducks? How do the old light bulbs with gas inside them work? Does everyone see colors the same? And how can we know that? Sorry for the long introduction, but it was necessary for understanding what kind of person I am. I know that sometimes I might come across as annoying. Now on to the problem. His parents hosted a small barbecue last weekend just for the family. It was the mom, 54F, dad, 59M, brothers, 26M and 29M, and their wives, both 27F. I was the last person to show up because I had to work late. As I entered the house and walked towards the backyard, I heard John's mom talking about me. To be honest, she wasn't just talking about me, she was mocking me. I heard her say in a high-pitched voice, "How does the sun work? Where should I put the fork? Why does nobody like me? How do I wipe my behind?" I just stood there, feeling a sinking sensation. I couldn't move, so I just stood there. I heard them all laughing. One of the wives said, "I actually don't mind her always asking questions. I think it's cute," which made me feel hopeful that they would say something like, "Yeah sure, we're just playing, we love that." But none of them did. Instead, the mom replied, "It's not cute. She's just stupid." After that, they laughed again. I heard John laughing too. My heart kind of broke at that moment because he didn't say one positive thing. He didn't defend me, he just laughed. I quietly turned around and left the house. I texted John that I got sick and had to stay home. Now I'm wondering how I should approach this situation. We live together, and I'm currently sleeping in the guest bedroom, using the excuse that I don't want him to get sick from being around me. I can't ignore him forever, and I can't pretend to be sick anymore because it's been too long. I'm not sure how to proceed. Maybe it was just a misunderstanding. I'm considering talking to them about this, but I'm also worried that they won't be honest with me. I can't marry him if he really thinks I'm stupid. But I also can't marry into a family that thinks so little of me. But maybe it was a joke, and I shouldn't take it so seriously. I'm so torn apart, and every day I convince myself a bit more that it's okay and that sometimes we should all laugh at ourselves. Now I feel like I'm just going crazy, so I would really appreciate some advice. Update 1. First of all, I wanted to say thank you to the people who reached out to answer my questions about black holes, snails, ducks, light bulbs, and other stuff. I would love to have you as my friends. For those who said I should just shut up, I don't really care if you find me annoying or hard to be around. I'm okay with that. I don't exist to please everyone. I'm just here to have a good time, pursue my own interests, and learn. I didn't expect my post to gain so much attention, but I'm so grateful for the advice. Most of you told me to break up with him and, at the very least, confront him. So that's what I decided to do. You gave me the push and confidence to do it. Before I did that, I texted the wife of John's brother, the one who said she liked me asking questions. I asked if we could meet up for coffee, and she said sure. We met, and I didn't see the point in pretending to her that I didn't hear their conversation. So after some small talk, I just said, "I heard you all talking about me during the barbecue." She immediately got sad and said she felt embarrassed. She explained that it wasn't a joke, wasn't out of context, that it was just mean and hurtful. She said she's sorry for not defending me more, but I said that it's okay and I understand. I told her that I don't blame her for anything, and I just wanted to make sure that I understood the situation and saw it for what it really was. And it really was laughing about me behind my back. Just bullying. At this point, I just had to confront John. In my last post, so many comments were saying that he would probably try to gaslight me, and you were right. We were having dinner together for the first time since the barbecue happened, because before, I tried my best to avoid him. Yes, I know, not very mature of me, but other than you guys, I don't really have a strong support system. My family and best friends are hundreds of kilometers away, and I only have 2 good friends here. I was so stressed, I thought I was going to pass out. My legs were shaking, and I was terrified because I knew deep down that this was the moment when my 5-year relationship would go down the drain. I looked him in the eyes and asked, "How does the sun work?" He looked confused, so I followed with, "Where should I put my fork? Why does nobody like me?" At this point, realization hit him, and he started nervously laughing. I said I was there and I heard them. After the initial shock passed, he got mad. He said it's rude to eavesdrop. I said it's rude to bully people. He tried telling me that it was just a joke, that I shouldn't be so uptight, and that it really was funny. I said that I didn't find it funny and went to the guest room to calm down. He started panicking. He was asking me to please talk to him. He was much more apologetic and said that he would be 100% honest with me. I asked if his mother had made similar comments before the barbecue, and he said yes. I asked him if he ever defended me, and he said he tries to. I don't know if I believe him. He told me he loves me and respects me, and I don't know if I believe that either. I said that I love him too, but I need a break. He's all I've ever known. He was my first and only partner. I have no outside perspective on this, I have no experience. I need a moment to think. I will be going to my friend's house for a while to think everything through. The apartment has his name on the lease anyway. After I gathered some of my things and left, he kept texting me nonstop. He tried calling, but I didn't respond. I was very hurt because he tried to belittle my feelings, and only later, when he realized that I might break up with him, did he start apologizing. The next day, I decided to give him another chance to explain himself, and I came back to the apartment. He seemed very sad and tired. He said that he told his mother that I overheard them. I said I didn't care. It was his time to step up and show me that he cares. I'm not interested in an apology from his mother, I'm already done with her. I can't put up with this behavior and mocking me like we're in primary school. I saw a comment saying that probably her ego is hurting. I think it's true. She never got the chance or never had the desire to get an education. She is a very good homemaker, but outside of that, she doesn't have many interests of her own. If I ask her about making tomato soup, she will talk for 30 minutes, lecturing me about adding enough sugar but not too much. She will lecture anyone who is willing to listen. But anytime someone talks about something she's not familiar with, she gets defensive and tries to imply that nobody cares about that, and if it's not relevant to her, it shouldn't be discussed. Once again, he tried telling me that I should relax because it was only a joke, and at this point, I had enough. I took off my ring and told him that his behavior is a joke, and I can't be the punchline. I told him that I wish him and his family the best and to look in the mirror to check if they really are as superior as they think they are. I said I would be back with my friends soon to pick up the rest of my stuff and to not contact me again unless it's about moving my things out. And that's it, I'm done. Thank you all for the advice. Without you, I wouldn't have had the confidence to leave this man. I know I deserve better. I can't be with someone who can't stand up for me, and I wouldn't be able to feel comfortable around his family, so I'm done with the relationship. I hope they treat his next girlfriend better. Thank you again, Reddit, for the advice.